I'm Mary Eisenhower Dennis, and our son Ake. Okay. I guess I'd like to start off by saying that you don't know what you don't know. We had no idea when our son overdosed 2 years ago, well, almost 3 years ago, 2009, what brain injury was about. We didn't know what alternative therapies were out there. We were in traditional therapies at 2 different rehab hospitals. But we started exploring alternative therapies, and we stumbled upon hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and we looked into ability camp. And when we researched that, we found out something called conductive education. We had looked into hyperbaric, just strictly hyperbaric, without additional therapies. And in fact, we were told, or it was suggested to us, not to do physical therapy with Ake in addition to the hyperbaric, because it might be too much. I had some questions for Caitlin. She answered them to our satisfaction, and we decided to go with ability camp. And for many, many reasons, we're glad that we did. First and foremost, we've seen lots of changes with Ake.
More in it.
You're what?
More in it.
He says he's more in it.
Much more alert.
Much more alert.
Much more alert. I think you said to me the fog is lifted more. And what we found with brain injury is, even with his traditional therapies and the other things,
Brain injury's a bitch.
that you know, the fog tends to lift. It has its own time frame. There's no doubt in our mind that in these 5 weeks, both hyperbaric and conductive have contributed to this lifting. In addition to that, motor skills have improved. You can show them this one. This one's your. And down, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Before this, Ake had a lot of trouble finding center and staying at center and doing things slowly. The movement seemed to be more rapid and jerky. I'm not calling it jerky.
Hope so.
But the movements tended to be like that. And we don't know whether to attribute it to one or the other. My hunch is it's a combination of both. The other piece that I think is really important for us is that we weren't sure. Ake had never been out of a hospital in 2.5 years. We had never taken full care of him until we took this leap of faith to come to ability camp. And it's kind of scary when you have nurses and aides and all that kind of stuff helping you with your son's meds.
Colin's a pretty great guy.
Carlington's your CNA, he's a pretty big guy.
Yes.
So we weren't sure if we could, assist Ake in transfers and showering and things like that. But we kind of took the risk and were pleasantly surprised with the help of people here to make suggestions to us as we're sitting and transferring and sitting at the table and things like that, right? You itching for me, Joe? Thanks. One of the things that I think is really positive about ability camp is it builds your own trust as a parent or a caregiver or a loved one in your abilities to care for them. I think the other piece is this opportunity presented itself to Ake to step up to the plate as well. It wasn't just Dennis and I stepping up and doing things that we hadn't done. It definitely is a team effort. And as far as I'm concerned, I really think that ability camp would be a great transition for people who are looking at going out of full-time care in a hospital or in a home or whatever to going back to the home environment with your loved one. I think or back to your community. Both, huh? Yeah. So our plan is to continue with the conductive exercises that Victoria has taught us. I I personally think that it's all for naught if we don't keep those exercises going. It makes sense to me that we have to start at the basics and then work up. The other thing I do want to say is all the therapists we've had to this point and all the experiences we've had have been great. I think traditional therapy has brought us to this point where we could benefit from hyperbaric and also from I think a lot of folks in the States aren't aware of conductive education, as I wasn't aware of it until I talked with Caitlin and we came here and experienced it, and I just think it holds a lot of value. One of the market improvements that we've seen is the lack of agitation in therapy. We were struggling with that, and that would eat up some time in therapy. Phil was very patient with your agitation and some anger. With brain injury comes anger and emotional outbursts. Those seemed to be increasing. Here, they've really been reduced to the point where they're almost non-existent. And again, I don't know whether to attribute that to the conductive education or the hyperbaric things that have been happening in your brain to help those areas, but combination, yeah. The other piece about Ability Camp is the other families. I mean, we have met people we have never would have met had this not occurred. Obviously, we wish this hadn't occurred, but everything about Ability Camp's been great. The communal living, I think it's the most normal, definitely the most normal we have found in over 2.5 years. Eating with other people, cooking dinners with Ake, his helping with that, being in fresh air, sitting at a table in a normal chair every night instead of a wheelchair. He's learned that, how to balance in a chair. We went to a restaurant last night and he sat in a chair rather than a wheelchair. I mean, those things, simple things that we take for granted. But now we don't, and we build on those. It was a safe environment to test things out, right? As Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, we'll be back. The end.